You are listening to Thank Me for My Cervix, a podcast where we talk about all things mental health with a focus in the veteran and the military community. I'm your host, Marine Corps veteran Shawna Marie, and if you are watching this replay on YouTube or rewatching the replay on Instagram and you notice this scratch on my nose, I just want everybody to know that I am in an abusive relationship with my cat because she is overweight and I'm trying to portion her food and make her exercise more, and that has led to her attacking me in my sleep. And this is a wound from that. So, yeah, if you're concerned about me, don't worry. It's okay. It's just my cat. And I'm scared. Anyways, so, as always, every episode is uploaded to Spotify, and I try to do it on Tuesdays, but realistically, it's whenever I can upload them. I'm super excited for today's guest. He is an author, and he is living abroad, and now he takes his time to educate other veterans on how to do it. So I just saw that he joined our live, so as soon as he requests to join, I will get him on here with us, and we'll talk to him. Ooh. Just a minute, we're going to try to get him on. While we're waiting for him, I do want to talk about, we do have t-shirts coming in. They are in the works. There's going to be 3 styles to choose from, and 4 styles, Well, 2 for each gender. And then I will be doing a giveaway for one of the shirts as well. That is all coming up. Okay. How do I join him to the live? I'm gonna message him from my personal. 1 second, guys. Sorry. I get too many messages. Oh, he's probably... How do I regret? I don't know how to do it from a laptop, but like at my screen, when I'm looking at myself, there's like, add to the, I don't have any requests to join, but if for you, it would say request to join live, request to co-host the show, but I don't have a request right now. Start clicking a bunch of buttons. One of them should work. Unfortunately, maybe you might, I don't know if you have to do it from a phone. I'm assuming that a laptop would work. This honestly is fine because that will give people time to come on. Oh, and I could probably share the live. Wait, hold on. I'm messaging from my personal. 1 second, guys. Watching myself cancel. This honestly is fine because that will give people time to come on. Oh, and I could probably share the live. Wait, hold on. I'm messaging from my personal. 1 second. Hold on, sorry. Yes! View request! Maybe. It always takes a second. Yeah.
I just pulled up my phone.
I'm sorry. I wasn't sure, honestly. I was like, I think I've had guests. I'm not sure. I apologize. I'm glad we got it to work though.
It's 100% my fault.
But thank you for taking the time to come talk to me today.
Talk about living abroad and my books and everything. So thank you for having me on.
Yes, I'm really excited. So we're going to start with a little bit of the background about you. Tell us a little bit about yourself, where you grew up, and I actually don't even know what branch. I like researched all your stuff, but I'm like, I don't see what branch you was in.
Well, that's because I had like a very average military career. You know, I did some time in the infantry. I did 2 deployments to Afghanistan, and then I got out of the military. And I kind of felt like my service to veterans started when I got out. That's when I started writing. I got the opportunity I originally started working with student veterans. That was kind of my first foray into veteran advocacy. And I got to go and talk to Congress about student veteran employment and issues and things like that. I wrote my first book, Combat to College, which is like a self-help book kind of for student veterans because it's such a difficult transition from the military into college. And there isn't anything that existed like my book. So I wanted to produce a resource, kind of like everyday advice, how to be successful in college. And I got to go talk to Congress. And that was when it kind of opened my eyes to a few simple things because no one in Congress really cared about anything that I had to say. I was trying to work to increase student veteran employment because obviously student veterans are more likely to need jobs, being non-traditional students, a little bit older, having families. And I wanted the VA to help set up a job program through a VA work study program. And nobody in Congress gave a shit about anything that I was trying to do. And I remember one moment, I was working for the Veterans of Foreign Wars as a legislative assistant, and I got to draft legislation and pitch it to Congress people. And initially, I was very passionate about it and everything. And then I got to talk to this one Congresswoman, and she was so dismissive about just everything I was trying to do. And that's when I realized, okay, we can't rely on people like that to help us. We have to help ourselves, and we have to help one another. And that's kind of when I kind of took my own lane into the advocacy stuff and started writing about better mental health. And then that kind of led to the blog. And the living abroad shit is just something I stumbled upon because I moved to the Dominican Republic because I like sunshine, pretty girls, nice beaches, and I enjoy the lower cost of living.
Yeah. Okay. That's awesome. Wait, I had a few questions that I was like noting in my head as you were saying all of this. Okay. So, when you spoke to Congress and you were doing all of that type of work, so what is your job now that you're out?
I'm a writer.
Okay, and that's specifically what you do. Okay, that's awesome.
Yep.
Honestly, you spoke on a lot of things that I'm extremely passionate about, and I really appreciate what you're doing. Let's talk a little bit about your book because I wrote down for today. So basically, when I was looking through it, it had different dates and like a quote or some sort of thing for the day. And for today, it was, I will not seek out conflict, but I won't shy away from them. And I loved that for today. It was I was like, that's something cool that we can talk about, but it's for the whole year. So talk a little bit about how you came across this idea.
So I initially developed a coaching program for student veterans, which is free on my website. Anyone can go look at it. And when I was coaching this one student veteran who was a Marine and he was struggling a little bit with transition to college, I would text him an affirmation every day in the morning. I just wake up, alarm my phone, text him something. I looked up a bunch of Marine lingo because, I don't really know any of the Marine stuff. Just a positive affirmation to kind of start his day right before he was going into a class because he was really struggling with some of his algebra and some of the college stuff. And then he ended up printing out these affirmations and taking them to his PTSD support group. And then the PTSD support group, apparently the counselor contacted me and she was like, hey, I really love these affirmations that you wrote. Like, they seem fantastic. And it kind of was a wake-up call to the power of affirmations written with our culture in our language. And I looked, and there's no such thing as anything to do with veteran affirmations out there. There's affirmations kind of for every, kind of everything you could think of. But for veterans, no. So I kind of dove into reading about all the different branches, creeds, lingos, values, songs, and it led me to writing the book, 365 Days of Veteran Affirmations. And every month has a theme. I don't remember what January's theme is, but March's theme is, word of the month is leader. So then the affirmations have to do with leadership a little bit more. So writing it was a lot of fun. I've got so much positive feedback. If I was smart enough, I'd create like an app that gave people daily veteran affirmation if they just open up their phone. But I got to work on figuring that shit out because
there's so many ideas. Like, I'll get something popped in. I was like, I literally don't even have the energy to try to do that right now. I thought of something that I wanted to say. So the program to get out when, like, Marines. So Marines is what I was in. That's what I'm familiar with. So when I'm speaking on it, it's coming from the Marine aspect. That's just for a heads up. When we get out, we have this program called TRS. And they kind of are supposed to give us guidance to get out. And it is terrible. It is it's horrific. You don't get any information, and it's all crammed into a 7-day period, and I hate it. I'm hoping it's better because I got out a while ago too. Anyway, what I think is they should bring things like your book, like the Combat to College, or even the 365 Days of Affirmations. Like, people think like, oh, I don't need that. But then you start looking into it and you're like, wait a minute, this is neat. And maybe I don't, but I can pay it forward.
And a lot of the veterans are so focused when they're in that week, they're just trying to get out of the military. They're just thinking, I just want to take this uniform off. They're not necessarily thinking about the next step. So when I'm fortunate enough to go talk to active duty troops, which I do sometimes on like bases, and I always say, hey, who's getting out of the military? And like maybe 20% of the hands will go up. And I'll be like, everyone's getting out of the fucking military. Unless you plan on dying at war, you're getting out of the military, and you have to start preparing for the day the second that you realize that. And in a lot of veterans, I see that kind of eyes light up. You have to start planning your financial future. You have to start planning your educational future. You have to start thinking about how to take advantage of your benefits. Because the day you join the Army is kind of when you should, or military, is when you should start thinking about planning on getting out. Because every veteran is going to have 3 lives. You have your pre-military life, your military life, and your post-military life. And the transitions that we do are vitally important, and how you execute those transitions is going to determine the course of your life. I usually tell veterans the year you get out of the military is actually the most important year of your life. Like the day you take off the uniform in the next year, because that's when you're going to develop the habits. That's when you're going to create your civilian identity. That's when you get back into the world. You're going to develop the routines that are going to take you into your future. So that year is critically important for your success, but it's the year that veterans usually just want to, grow a beard, get drunk, do those types of things, go travel, but it's the year that you really have to turn it on.
If thinking about how I was, if someone came up to me before getting out of the Marine Corps and was like, hey, this next year is the most important year of your life, I would have been like, what do you know? Like, I don't think my mentality would have been smart enough at that moment to realize that. Mm-hmm. And now I can look back and be like, dang, if I would have handled that transition better, I would be in a better position. It's going off. And I just didn't, I was so, we're so young when we join, and, we're not much older sometimes when we're getting out. No. And when we're doing that transition, it's hard to stay, to know that you're doing the right things because you're still young to make those decisions. And yeah, I wish that I would have had a better mentality about it. And I love that if you are taking the opportunity, I would love to go speak to Marines now getting out, being like, hey.
And it's super obvious that the military fails in preparing you to get out. All you have to do is take a look at veteran statistics when it comes to basically any metric. And one of the reasons that the military is so poor at transitioning soldiers out is because you have 2 classes of people in the military. Across all the branches, doesn't matter if you're Marine, Coast Guard, Army, whatever, you have officers and you have enlisted. And the officers have no idea what it's like to be enlisted. And the big difference between these groups is the college degree. That's the one thing that separates officers and enlisted people. So when enlisted people get out, they're already a little bit behind the 8 ball. So officers, they kill themselves less. They're less likely to be alcoholics. They get divorced less. They're less likely to be homeless. And one reason is because they get out of the military and have better networking situations while they're in. And they also have the benefit of having the college degree. So when we start college, when I started college, I was a 30-year-old college freshman, divorced, PTSD, all those things. And so that's why I realized, hey, the student veteran thing is a great angle to initially get into, because that's where so many people start their civilian journeys. And their success or failure there really is going to determine the course of their lives, because people with college degrees make more money. And financial health is mental health. I promise you, the more money you have, the better opportunities you're going to have, the happier you're going to be, and officers make more money, and part of that is because of the college degree. So I kind of dove into the student veteran stuff, and I wanted to pursue writing full time. So I moved down here to the beautiful Dominican Republic, and that's when I got into the veterans living abroad stuff, because I realized a lot of the veterans I meet here, we actually have over 20,000 veterans that live here in the Dominican Republic. And there are millions of veterans that live abroad all over the world. And part of that is because my rent in my nice apartment is $500 a month. I can walk to the beach. I just enjoy kind of a higher quality of life, and also I escape the we'll call it the toxicity and the stress that's kind of permeated everywhere within the United States.
Yeah, I can completely understand that. I mean, I've never even left the United States. I guess my personal question for moving abroad is someone with a family. Like, I have two children, I'm a single mother. That would be my first question, is like, how could I do that?
Yeah, and that aspect makes it a little bit harder. Of course, children make life more difficult no matter where you are or what you're doing. And I always kind of preface the veterans living abroad stuff with, hey, I'm a no wife, no kids, no pets, no problems type of veteran. I don't have those things, so my life is a little bit differently. So when I initially started talking, I'm thinking single veterans for the most part. And I was shocked at how many families hit me up, how many military spouses hit me up, and they're like, wow, we want to get out of this bullshit. We want to get out.
Help us too.
Yeah, so that's when I kind of started getting into more family stuff. And, like when I went to Costa Rica, I toured the international schools there. And I went to school. My master's degree is in international education. And I taught in Thailand when I first got out of the military. So I've kind of been like living abroad and doing this for a while. And the quality of international schools, like private international schools, is far higher than like American public education. Like, one, they just, kind of have the bullshit curriculums that are in the United States, and private schools can be more flexible as the world changes. So they're more interested in things like technology. They're like the school I taught at, and in Costa Rica, they're talking about taxes. They're talking about finances. They're talking about careers.
The stuff that you need in life. What I will say too, the biggest red flag is anyone you meet from another country, minimum can speak two languages. Minimum.
Americans the only people that speak one language.
And I tried to learn another language, but it was, I don't know if it was the way that it was taught, and I only took it for 4 years, and I still, like, I know enough where I can understand what they're saying, but I can't respond back. And I feel like I meet people, because especially now doing this type of stuff, I'm meeting tons of people, and I'm like, America is the only country that is not pushing another language, and I hate that. I honestly hate that. Because learning multiple languages opens up these passages in your brain that allow you to think more wide.
Yeah, and that's one reason why I initially wanted to be a teacher, and then I did my student teaching in America, and I realized I hate these kids. Like coming out of the army, getting cursed at by like a 7th grader, like wasn't something I could do. So I took the teaching job in Thailand, and I have students bowing to me. They're very respectful. The parents are very respectful. The administration is there. So there's a better approach to education, and also more support for teachers. So when I was teaching there, I only taught a minimum of 4 hours a day, because they wanted me to have time to do my planning, to do my grading, to be, good in the classroom. They didn't want me to do any work at home. So you saw those kind of differences in the educational system. And then you see the differences in the outcomes, where like, that's why they're a lot smarter than us in a lot of.
Absolutely. Do kids in those places spend time in school less? Like, is their day shorter?
So there's less focus on things like athletics. Like in America, we have like an overemphasis on athletics, and they have an overemphasis on like languages, music, and those types of things. So it's kind of cool to get into that stuff. And like I mentioned, I was surprised how many families started contacting me and talking about moving abroad, because initially I'm thinking, mainly single people, but there are so many families also that are moving abroad because of some of those things. And the language barrier is something that's kind of a bigger deal. And that's why you'll be shocked when you move abroad how many people speak English. When I first came to Dominican Republic, I only spoke English, and I've been kind of picking Spanish up. And that's why a lot of veterans choose to live in like Belize or the Philippines or Panama, or areas with, high levels of English, if they're not interested in learning another language.
I'm definitely interested in learning as many languages as possible. For whatever reason, my brain, I think I'd have to be in the atmosphere of living in it. Which I'm not against, but I feel like that's how I'd learn faster.
I made an Instagram video, and I told people, hey, if you want to learn Spanish, just move to the Dominican Republic and date Spanish girls and argue with them a lot. And you'll pick it up. you'll pick it up pretty quickly. So that's my one piece of advice.
That's good
Yeah,
advice. That's good advice.
most solid advice I could think of, because that was, I think, my strategy.
Okay. So what would you say some of your biggest accomplishments so far are? Like, what's the most things that you've done that you're proud of?
I think hearing from veterans for my book for college is important. I spoke at a college in Virginia 2 months ago, and the student veterans there had all read my book and talked about some of the lessons that they learned. Because one of the things I say is, hey, before I joined the military, I was a community college dropout. And after I left the military, I ended up with a master's degree from Harvard. And it's not because I'm particularly bright, it's because I figured out how to transition my military mentality into the classroom, how to take the advantages of being a veteran and turn that into kind of like the new battlefield of education. Because we're so quick to focus on the negative aspects that the military gives us, and there are a lot. We focus on the PTSD, we focus on the problems, we focus on the difficulties in transition. But the military did give us a lot of positive things as well. We know how to work on a team. We're disciplined. My first day in college, I remember sitting in the classroom thinking I was late or in the wrong place, because I was the only person in the room, because I was there 15 minutes early and no one else was there. So utilize those types of things, and you can go through education. A lot of what education is just, it's kind of like if you take an axe and you hit a tree in 1,000 different places, nothing's going to happen. But if you hit a tree in one place 1,000 times, it's going to fall. And that's what education is, kind of the same thing over and over again. You show up, you pay attention, you study, you repeat, and you do that over time. But veterans are more likely to have issues outside of the classroom, like the stuff we talked about. Like 70% of veterans have some type of service-connected disability. So when they're in education, of course, that has a big impact on it. And they're also more likely to be like you, be a parent or a single parent or divorced, or, have all these extra responsibilities.
Yeah, absolutely. What I will say is I would have to read more into your book, because I've gone to college. I've had a few different things. I get halfway through and then I lose interest. I get halfway through and I lose interest. I've had multiple careers, and to include law enforcement. I was in law enforcement for a little bit. I'm a hairstylist now. I was a personal trainer. I'm an interior designer. And I like, once it comes down to sitting in a classroom, I don't do well.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's something that I can even overcome, or, it's never been something that I enjoy, was sitting in a classroom.
It's a veteran thing, because veterans are more likely to be active learners, and college is kind of a passive thing. You can't learn to do anything in the military like, just sitting in a chair. You learn by doing. So veterans are more likely to, be better at experiential education, as opposed to, just sitting down. But I would say, for my blog, like, it's cool that I'm just able to kind of write things. So I write, about everything like nature therapy for veterans and how to live abroad, and getting those positive responses, I think, is something that has been really meaningful recently, because a lot of veterans don't know that they can receive their VA benefits outside the United States. They don't know they can use the GI Bill other places. They don't know, how to move abroad or anything like that. So kind of putting those information out there and dispelling some of those myths, because so many of the veterans that I meet abroad are kind of thriving, and a lot of veterans in the United States are just surviving. You look at things like the suicide rate of veterans. Well, the suicide rate of veterans that live here is zero, because you just go to the beach. There's so much like mental health, positive things that come with escaping the stress of the United States. So I think the mental health aspect has been one thing that surprised me about living abroad, because when I came here, I ended up getting off the medication that I was on for years. I ended up eating fresher foods. Like this Coca-Cola I bought from the store here, and this Coca-Cola has real cane sugar and less high fructose corn syrup than in the United States. So there's so many like little things that you learn when you're living abroad that kind of shocks you about how unhealthy the United States is. And some of that is like the culture, the political division. Because when I talk to veterans, hey, why'd you move abroad? It's always, I was sick of the bullshit. And the bullshit means so many different things. It can mean the high cost of living. It can mean hating each other. It can mean the constant stress. And when you move abroad, you kind of realize that a lot of the things that we are so worried about, the possessions, all those things, don't matter as much as we think they do.
No, I love that message. I think that's so important to get out and speak about. And I thank you so much for like taking the time to come on here and talk about that. What would you say are some of your biggest goals that you would want to accomplish for the future? What's something that you are most excited about?
So I've been writing a book for a few years, so I'm hoping that's the next thing. It's kind of a blueprint to post-military life, and it's kind of been through my life journey and a little bit my story, as well as kind of things I learned along the way. So I'm hoping that's going to be the thing that's going to elevate me kind of into the big leagues as far as those types of things go. So that's something I'm excited about in the future. And then for me, it's just kind of continuing to put this positive message out to veterans. About moving abroad, because I think 2024 and in the future, we're going to see a lot more veterans kind of think about their options, especially when, you're like me and you work from your computer and you have your VA benefits and you look around you and you might not really recognize, the America that you wanted to serve or that you grew up in. It's kind of a wake up call. So I think we're going to see a lot more veterans move abroad. And one reason is, I think, because we're such community people. We're such communal, teamwork-driven people. And then we get out of the military into a society that feels kind of individualistic, divided, fragmented. Because, think about your boot camp. It's actually like a super beautiful thing where you take people from all over the country, all different races, classes, religions, and you somehow make a team out of these people. Nowhere else in America's society could you do that. They would kill each other immediately, especially in different places. So
they torture you together too. It forces you to have this like inseparable bond with these people. I still think of the girls that I was in boot camp with. Mm-hmm. The funny times, the sad times, all of it is like burned into my brain.
And then we come in a country that's more individualistic than ever, and we kind of feel a little bit lost. So I think the political division in America actually is harder on veterans because of our background and culture than civilians.
It's like you're speaking to me. Like I do say it all the time. Like I wish I could just pack up everything and leave. I would leave everything here and just leave, honestly. But it's like how?
Right, and that's why I wrote the guide.
Which, I know. I'm gonna be
the Veterans Guide to Moving Abroad, and it goes over kind of the steps to do it, some advice. I also have articles on my website, like 5 tips for veterans moving abroad. Get into some of the kind of weeds on like healthcare stuff that a lot of veterans might not understand, because we actually have veteran healthcare centers here in the Dominican Republic that I go to. And a lot of people are super shocked to learn that, but I get better healthcare, free healthcare, paid for by the VA here in the Dominican Republic than I did in the United States. Wait times don't exist here. Medication is very easy. Like I get massages paid for by the VA. We have all those things. The only things that you don't have here are some things like dental. But what they do is I can go get my teeth cleaned for $15 because it's the Dominican Republic and everything's way cheaper. So there's a lot like that to moving abroad, to where, it's just kind of leads to a little bit more healthier life.
That's really awesome. Yeah, I have a VA appointment actually tomorrow, and I have to drive 2.5 hours to go to my appointment that I've been waiting for a month and a half.
So here they come and pick you up if you want, if you don't have a car or whatever. So if I wanted an appointment for tomorrow, I could call them and they come pick me up and take me there. And part of that is a financial driven thing. So they get paid for treating veterans. So they bill the VA when they treat me. So they're anxious to get me in the office. They want to set up events. They want to have group therapy. They want to do all these raffles. Like they just raffled off a moped. So they're very interested in helping you, because it also helps them. So and the VA just, like you said, doesn't seem to care. I remember my first mental health appointment, I had to wait like 24 days. And here, those things don't happen. And part of that is the financial aspect of it, which works in veterans' favor.
Yeah, I wish that there was like a program that I could be involved in that, there was like a thing, that I could speak to veterans as like a therapy type situation, because it's been really hard here. And it's just like, even if I had other veterans to kind of talk about that were going through similar things, that'd be helpful. I'm not aware of any program like that. But I'm still waiting for my mental health appointment, and it has been a long. I don't even honestly know how. It's been a long time, but they still send me my medication. They make sure I get my medication, but my therapy, all that stuff, it's like pulling teeth.
Right. And that's a lot of what American healthcare is set up for you to be a patient and a customer your entire life. And a lot of veterans, when they get out of the military, they just go on that kind of hamster wheel of constant medication. I remember when I got out, I was prescribed something for everything, for anxiety, to sleep, for depression. And then it was crazy because when I moved here, I just kind of stopped needing it. I was like, I feel good day to day. And part of that is escaping the toxicity of the United States. And part of that is because you have to be the director of your own therapy. You kind of have to like direct it. And I found like nature being something that really impacted me. So here in Dominican, I grew up in Iowa. Here in the Dominican Republic, I swim in the ocean every single day. I go out, I swim in the ocean, and that's such like a healing thing. And we don't think about how much our environment and our location matters. You know, plants, veterans, people, you can't grow in toxicity. And being in an environment like this, where I can do things like swim in the ocean every day, have really helped for my own personal mental health. Of course, like living abroad is not all a constant party all the time. There are challenges, all those things. I still have to pay taxes, do my laundry. You know, it's not a constant party. So, although sometimes I wish it was, but it's still to me superior. So I do write about the cons of living abroad in my guide, which you can find on my site. You know, it's john.h.davis.writer.com, where I have my blog. I also have articles specifically on veterans living in Mexico, Costa Rica, Thailand. I have a veteran friend writing one about living in Germany, explaining the process for that, because there are so many veteran support groups abroad. You know, there are VFWs in Thailand, there are American Legions in Mexico. There are a lot of groups abroad that, you know, I think community matters more to us. So like here in Dominican Republic where I live, I go out to dinner almost every night with a group of veterans. We all go out, sit around a table, talk.
Take me with you.
Yeah. Yeah, you come visit. Come visit. So
I really, everything about this makes me want to go.
Yeah, and I think a lot of veterans, they're, you know, kind of just getting the information is good. So for me, it's just kind of like it's been a blessing to be able to be like, hey, so this is an option, and
no,
that's
exactly what you were for me,
yeah.
Because I wasn't even, I mean, it was just me every day being like, man, I wish I could,
Right.
I could. And then here you are, you're just like, literally, here's the guide if you want to do it.
They're like, God. And I think it's because of the stuff in the States, obviously the higher cost of living is really like impacting people's day-to-day lives. And if you're a veteran, you know, if you're an enlisted veteran, chances are you're not a super rich person. So your financial health plays a lot into your mental health, and living cheaper, and retiring abroad is something that I think more and more veterans are doing. Like if you do your 20 years, you know, the dream used to be get a house or live in Florida, but now Florida's like really, really expensive to live in a place like that.
Crazy.
So
it's crazy.
So
it's crazy where I'm at right now, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, the American dream is very much alive. It's just not in America.
No. So I love what you're doing, and I really appreciate that. Was there anything else that you would like to speak on while we have this platform to talk on? Just anything else you'd like to share? I love all your messages so far, but I just want to make sure.
Veterans are uniquely suited to live abroad. We know how to take care of ourselves. We understand things like safety, and we're very adaptable. Veterans also do a ton of volunteer work. So I volunteer with the youth boxing program here, and we take and provide all this free training, and we do like boot camps for some of the younger Dominican and Haitian kids. And, you know, when I was in Thailand last month, we raised a ton of money for a local orphanage. So doing stuff like that, you know, because as veterans, we're trained to leave everything better than we found it. So like I go to a local church here, and we do all this local community stuff, and we kind of get out into the world because we volunteer more than anyone else. And that's something we should be very proud of. So if you go to my website, you'll see my free Veterans Guide to Living Abroad, my articles, and then my latest book, 365 Days of Veteran Affirmations, which is an affirmation January 1st all the way to December 31st, written with veteran culture, creeds, values, you know, really, I think, impactful stuff. And affirmations are such a great tool for your mental health routine. Just to do a daily affirmation, you know, is something that I think is really going to help you not only heal from like your PTSD, but also reach your potential.
And it's simple, and it's a little bit underrated. It's something that you can simply read every day. I was reading through all January, and I was like, this is so, I love this.
we just lean towards dark humor, sarcasm, internal anger, embracing the suck, and we kind of have to switch that narrative in order to heal.
I agree. You don't have to embrace the suck, because you can just there can be no suck.
Not anymore. You have to in the military, but not so much anymore.
So what is the best way for people to follow you, get a hold of you, see everything?
Usually people see like my Instagram videos, so I post Instagram videos about veterans living abroad, kind of like casual stuff, like and that's kind of how I started with it, because I ended up sending funny stories to my friends, like, hey, I'm on the beach in Dominican Republic, and they were in America during COVID, just walking around with the mask on, and there's none of that kind of nonsense here. So then it kind of turned into informing veterans. Here's how you do healthcare. Here's how you do this. Instagram, my website, john.h.davis.writer.com, and it has links to all my articles, my blog, different books that I've written. So I think that's it. And then I'm on TikTok trying to figure out.
And when we want information on your book, where could we find that at? When are you going to release that information?
I don't know.
Tell me if you can tell me.
Yeah, we'll see. Probably a while.
Okay.
Yeah, probably a while.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you again so much for taking the time to come and see me today. We have a few. Let me just read through our comments really fast to make sure there's not anything that we can't answer just while we have you here live. There's so many comments. I wish I could just see only comments. Okay.
Well, the veterans living abroad thing is something that's been like really fascinating to people, because people have been like, oh, so there are like Facebook groups for veterans living abroad. There are different resources, there are information on how to do tribe care, health care. So I think that's something that's kind of been really fascinating to veterans, because so many veterans already live abroad. You had a ton of veterans that moved abroad after the Vietnam War, and then a lot of veterans tend to be first and second generation immigrants themselves. A lot of the people in every unit we served with were born in other countries, and then they get out and they realize, wow, I can take my military benefits or my retirement and go back to where I came from. And a lot of veterans already speak the language, so it's one of those things that's been really cool to get positive responses from people who are like, oh, I really want to move abroad. And then it's just kind of, here's how you start. Here are some tips. Here's some information. Here are top countries for veterans.
There's a lot of, I don't know if you can see the comments on your end. I guess there's not, sometimes they don't show up, but lots of praise on your affirmation book. It says you are motivating all around, or you provide an abundance of knowledge.
Yeah. So I'm currently working, my next project is going to be out next month. It's free military affirmations for kids. So affirmations for military children. I'm trying to design cartoons and shit to make it kind of cool, just kind of like, hey, about my parent, my hero. So I'm really looking forward to that. It's going to be free on my website for just, affirmations for military children, because, military children do have a difficult journey when it comes to parents being deployed, when it comes to the struggles that military people face, when it comes to moving. So that's something I think is kind of an underrated thing in the world, the military kids. I think there is a decent focus on military spouses, groups, and a lot of that's because they form the community within themselves, because military spouses, I think are very good at that, although it's always a challenge. But I think military kids, having an affirmation book or an affirmation resource to read while your parents deployed or in training or something like that. So it's going to be totally free on my website. None of the stuff is monetized, like the Veterans Living Abroad guide is just free resources. Just like, hey, this is information that I learned in my own personal journey living abroad.
Absolutely. I love that. All right. Family is super tough for kids. Yes.
Yeah, I couldn't imagine your parents gone for a year at a time, especially for 8 years old. I mean, it's such a complicated thing. So I'm going to make it cool with some cartoons and stuff like that. It's going to be on my website, Affirmations for Military Children.
Awesome. You're so awesome.
That's what me and my mother think. So I appreciate
Well, you guys are right.
Yeah.
You guys are right.
Thank you for having me on.
I want to thank you again for taking the time to come on. I read through this. There's just people saying how awesome you are, basically, is what all the comments are. So.
I need to print that and hang on my wall. Thank you. I appreciate it.
All right. Well, thank you again so much. I hope everyone goes and follows you. And again, this will be available on Spotify for everyone to listen to on Tuesday. All right. Thank you. Bye.